Hey, hello everybody. Welcome to the Days for Girls in Kenya webinar. My name is Layla Eisensong. I'm Days for Girls Global Programs Director, and I'm going to be facilitating this webinar today. So just before we get officially started, just a few housekeeping pieces. So everybody will have entered the Zoom meeting and will be automatically muted. But you're able to use the chat box and the Q&A box to type in any questions that you have. And we will address those during the Q&A portion of this evening or this morning for wherever you are in the world. And then if we aren't able to get to everybody's questions, we will reach out to you directly in the next week or so after the webinar with answers to your questions. So I am so excited to have you all here. The Days for Girls in Kenya webinar that you're attending today is the first in a series, a webinar series that we've developed. We're calling it the Country Spotlight webinar series. And this is based on really fantastic feedback from all of you around the world, our chapters, teams, volunteers around the world, who have shared with us that you're really interested in learning more about what Days for Girls is doing all over the world, learning about some of the big picture pieces that we're working on, the strategy, and engaging with, meeting with, and collaborating with the phenomenal Days for Girls local leaders around the world, particularly enterprises, to learn more about how you can get engaged and involved with them as well. So this is the first in a series where we're going to take you around the world to a number of different countries and really just engage, dig in, collaborate, and get to know each other. So I ask that you do stay on mute throughout the call, just so that there's no sort of feedback or anything and everybody can hear and engage well. Okay, so we'll get started. So for those of you who have not met me before, my name is Layla Eisensong and I am the Global Programs Director for Days for Girls. I've been with Days for Girls since 2016 in a number of different capacities and have been on the staff team since 2019. I'm currently based over in Australia, usually in Luang Prabang in Laos, but over here in Australia during COVID. And it's just an absolute pleasure and wonder to get to work with Days for Girls and to work alongside all of you. So I'm so happy to be here. So our agenda for today, we've got a jam-packed agenda. So to start with, I'm going to give a sort of brief history and context of Days for Girls efforts in Kenya, starting all the way back in 2008, just to give us a touchstone or a cornerstone to work from. Then we are incredibly lucky today to have some of the amazing, phenomenal local leaders and advocates in Kenya joining us. So we have Anita, who is a social entrepreneur, from the Bomet Days for Girls Enterprise. We also have Alice, a social entrepreneur and of Smile Starred Enterprise, and she's also our enterprise liaison for Kenya and Tanzania. We also have Bridget joining us, and she's Days for Girls Kenya Program Manager. And we're also lucky enough to have Christine and Leston, two Kenya social entrepreneurs as well, joining us from Kenya, as they're also with Bridget and Christine and Alice at the moment on project. So we're really excited to have you all here. Thank you for taking the time to meet with us and to share all about the amazing work that you're doing in Kenya. We also have some wonderful chapter and team leaders who have been involved in Kenya in various ways, some since, back in 2008, 2009, and others who have joined along the way to work with enterprises, mentor enterprises, support and collaborate with enterprises in Kenya, who are really excited to share their stories and experiences doing so, and in the hopes of encouraging you and giving you some ideas of ways that you can also get involved in that way. And then, depending on the time, we'll then have a look at the Q&As, the questions that you've popped in the chat, and then we will look at answering as many of those as we can. Okay, so before we jump into the history and context of Days for Girls in Kenya, I wanted to just very briefly touch on the 4 activities that we do all across Days for Girls. So at Days for Girls, we do washable menstrual products, we do menstrual health education, we do social entrepreneurship or livelihoods opportunities, and we do policy and advocacy. So as you all know, there's a number of stakeholders throughout Days for Girls, including enterprises, including chapters, teams, clubs, solo sewers, partner organizations, governments that we're working with. And all of these different stakeholders usually are involved in at least one, if not more, often a combination of all 4 of these different activities that we get the opportunity to be involved in. So as we go along through the presentation, you'll see these different icons that are just showing, you know, the different factors and the different pieces of the history and which of these they relate to. So going all the way back to 2008, the very beginning of Days for Girls as an organisation and Days for Girls Kenya, they go hand in hand. So I'm going to just go through a brief timeline starting here for us, all about the work in Kenya. So 2008 till 2010. In 2008, this is when Celeste was working in Kenya, and this is where she started Days for Girls. This is where she woke up in the middle of the night thinking about a group of girls that she had been helping at an orphanage and thought, oh my goodness, what are they doing to manage their menstruation? And that is where Days for Girls was born, and the first Days for Girls kits ever made were distributed in Kenya. So it's got a really, really special history as part of our organisation. So in 2008 till 2010, as Days for Girls began to grow, including a number of chapters and teams and friends of Celeste that started to sew, they began distributing kits in Kenya, developing relationships, raising awareness, identifying local leaders. And in 2010, the first AWH education seminar for Kenyan women leaders was delivered. So 2011 to 2015 was all about growth, really, and continuing to raise awareness. So all of that continued to happen. Chapters and teams in particular, along with Celeste, continued to distribute, raise awareness, meet local people that were interested in getting involved. And then in 2016, this is when the locally led piece of Days for Girls in Kenya really took off. Between 2016 and 2018. So the first Days for Girls enterprises in Kenya were started in 2016. So Christine, who's here with us today, is one of those enterprise leaders, one of the first ones. Marianne also mentioned that the enterprise that she mentors started around this time as well. I know Alice, who we have, Anita, who we have on the call, started during this time period too, between 2016 and 2018, developing and growing their social enterprises in Kenya and really stepping forward to be the local leaders and local advocates for menstrual equity in their communities. During this time, Diana Nelson, our Global Advocacy Director, and Christine, who's on the call today, met with a Member of Parliament, Honourable Soipon. And together they travelled to a remote village in Narok to do a distribution with 300 girls and their teachers. And after this, Honourable Soipon agreed to partner with Days for Girls and be a menstrual health champion in Kenya. So this was really a really big moment for menstruation in Kenya and for Days for Girls to have a Member of Parliament stepping forward and joining arms with us to really say this is important and we need to address this in our country. During this time, chapters and teams continue to do their amazing work, distributing kits, working directly with some of these amazing enterprise leaders, helping to mentor new enterprises, as well as, of course, continuing to raise awareness and reach women and girls together. So 2019, I've labelled as gaining momentum. So a lot happened in 2019 that really laid the foundations for what was to come in 2020 and in 2021. So this photo is Honourable Soipon, the Member of Parliament. So again, our Global Advocacy Director, Diana, travelled to Nairobi and met with another Member of Parliament. So you can see that the advocacy and the policy and the high-level relationships are starting to build up as the Days for Girls enterprise leaders are, stepping out in their communities, building up, raising awareness of this issue, and being leaders and thought advocates in their communities. So they met with Honourable Esther, and Honourable Esther went to several enterprises to really see what Days for Girls was all about, which was amazing. And then had additional meetings with Honourable Sopon. There was also a number of trainings and conferences that took place in Kenya itself and also East Africa as a region. So the East Africa Enterprise Conference was held in Uganda, and the Kenya social enterprise leaders, many of them travelled to Uganda and attended those trainings. And then there was also the Kenya 2-day conference and training that was held in Nairobi during this time as well. So really all of the enterprise leaders, and I know that they can speak more to this, coming together, joining arms and really looking at how can we collaborate? We're stronger together. Let's work together to really raise this issue and to continue to reach more and more and more women and girls in our communities. Again, as I said, 2019 was quite a big year. So Alice, who's here today, attended the African Union Youth Summit in Ethiopia and was able to actually speak about the importance of menstrual health for youth throughout Africa. We also had a number of Days for Girls Kenya leaders, many of them on the call today, representing Days for Girls at the ICPD conference, which is absolutely huge to have representation there. 2019 was also when the Kenya support team was formed. So this was when it became very, very clear that Kenya was ramping up, that there was so many amazing things happening, so many amazing opportunities, absolutely phenomenal leaders. And it was time to bring together a support team so that we could really strategize, develop, collaborate, and grow in a deliberate way. So this support team had a number of local Kenyan people on it. Again, many of them on the call today who can speak more to that, as well as several enterprise mentors, and Celeste was also on that support team. Marianne Stroup, who's here today with us, was on that Kenya support team. And they met every single week for months and months and months, strategizing and working on exactly what the next steps were for Days for Girls in Kenya to secure growth, strength, and collaboration. So during this time, we also received 3 really important grants that were going to help us in the development to really put into practice all of this strategy that was being developed. So we received a large grant from Goldman Sachs, a large grant from the Starbucks Foundation, and a large grant from doTERRA Healing Hands Foundation, who have been long-time supporters of Days for Girls. So that was really exciting to have that backing to be able to take steps forward in our strategy. So this brings us to 2020, and 2020 was a really big year despite the pandemic in Kenya. And I'm excited to show you some of the statistics in a moment that really demonstrate that. But before the pandemic really took hold, a really huge achievement took place in Kenya. So Days for Girls is now a registered official NGO in Kenya called Days for Girls Kenya, and there is a Days for Girls Kenya board of directors who oversee all of the activities and compliance there in Kenya. And this has really, really big significance, not only for our reputation and our activities in Kenya, but it also really means that Days for Girls Kenya must be transparent, must be cohesive, must be consistent, must be reporting to the government, and so a lot of responsibility comes with that registration, and we're so excited to have achieved that. We also were incredibly excited to hire Bridget. Bridget's on the call with us today, and this is a photo of her, and she's Days for Girls Kenya's program manager. So she particularly helps with the implementation of the 3 grants that I just mentioned earlier, and supporting the enterprises, and very kindly does a number of other things for us to help with the operations of Days for Girls in Kenya. So in March, this is when all the enterprise leaders gathered in Bomet County to launch a national campaign. So later when Anita speaks, Anita is going to share a little bit more about what happened in her community and the response that she and Days for Girls Kenya has had as a whole. But the Red Line campaign was all about drawing a line under menstrual shame and stigma to honour a Kenyan schoolgirl in her county that took her life after menstrual shaming. So these are some photos to give you a bit of an idea of the incredible work and mobilisation that took place after this really tragic situation. In addition, we had some really amazing advocacy wins in 2020. So Days for Girls gained a seat on Kenya's Menstrual Health Coalition, which meant that we are seen as thought leaders within the menstrual health field in Kenya, and were able to participate in meetings that influence the national washable pad standard that's now come into action in Kenya early in 2021. And then we also co-hosted a global webinar with UNFPA and the ACMHM for Menstrual Hygiene Day, and Alice, who's here today, was one of the panel members of that webinar. We were able to begin implementing a number of the grant projects, including the doTERRA one, reaching 5 different counties in Kenya and really strengthening our relationships. And then we've got a list of a number of partnerships that were really, really strengthened here. And then the Red Line campaign expanded from Bomet into multiple other counties throughout Kenya, with all the enterprise leaders coming together, traveling to these different areas to launch the Red Line campaign in those different communities. So I wanted to give you a bit of a snapshot of the statistics from 2017 to 2020 and really show you how differences in our models and the importance of local leadership can actually reach even more women and girls. So here on this slide, these are the statistics of number of women and girls reached in 2017, 2018 and 2019 in Kenya. So as we can see, in 2017, 21,936 women and girls reached. 2018, 23,452, and 2019, 23,161. And under those, you can see the breakdown between the kits that were made and sent or brought by chapters and teams, and then the number that were made and distributed or sold by enterprises. So you can see that there's quite a big difference here, the chapters and teams sending the vast majority of these kits, and not much engagement with the enterprises. And what we can also see is an amazing number of women and girls reached, which is incredible. And we're really, really proud of that. And we thank every single person that was involved in doing so. And what we can also see here is limited growth, almost stagnation in the number reached, no increase, not a very large significant increase over a 3-year period. And over this 3-year period, our chapter and team program and our enterprise program were functioning largely separately. Yes, there was absolutely some chapters and teams that were mentoring or engaging with enterprises, but the vast majority were functioning separately. So I'm going to switch over to the next slide, which shows us in 2020. So in 2020, obviously the pandemic hit very early on in the year. And so that meant that chapters and teams all of a sudden could no longer travel. And that shifted a number of people's activities. Many chapters and teams began asking us, how can we still, we were supposed to reach these girls in Kenya, how can we still do it? And we were able to connect them directly with a number of the enterprises in Kenya. For them to sponsor kits through the enterprises and have them distributed to those same girls. Then we also rolled out the impact zones in June, which shifted the model for the chapter and team program and the volunteers throughout the world. where we were asking that basically we wanted our chapter and team program and our enterprise program to come together, to work hand in hand. So now there were some zones or some countries where we were encouraging chapters and teams to send their kits, and other zones like the red zone where Kenya is located, where instead of sending Days for Girls kits that chapters, teams or solo sewers have made, instead we're asking them to engage with the enterprises, sponsor the kits from the enterprises. So I'm really excited to share that in 2020, Days for Girls Kenya, an absolute record in Days for Girls history has been reached. The most girls in one single year in Kenya has been reached in 2020. 43,573 women and girls reached in 1 year during a pandemic. Of those women and girls reached, those kits, 2,612 were made by chapters and teams and sent very early on in the year. And the remaining 40,961 kits were made and distributed by the enterprises. A huge number of those supported and collaborated with from chapters and teams all around the world, in addition to partner organizations, direct women-to-women sales, government partnerships, so many different ways. Days for Girls stakeholders from around the world came together, backed our local leaders, and we practically nearly doubled the amount of women and girls that we were able to reach. So for me, the expression, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together, I think really resonates here and is really applicable, and really shows us that when we support locally led solutions, we can actually reach even more together. Okay, so looking ahead into 2021 and beyond, Kenya, the government in Kenya has already passed the washable standard, and Days for Girls Kenya will be getting the Days for Girls pads tested and hopefully certified this year. So that will have the government standard of approval. We've also recently co-hosted another webinar with a number of important partners. Just a few weeks ago, we also secured a strategic new resource center in Nairobi. So this is a photo of it. We're really excited to get in there and fit it all out. But this resource center is positioned to serve the larger East and Southern Africa region. It's going to be a supply chain hub. It's going to have all of the things needed that can be shipped in and out to enterprises throughout the region, and we are incredibly excited. This is a really, it's been in our strategy for some time, and we've had a smaller model of this, and this is an expansion so that we can really ramp up in Kenya and East and Southern Africa over the coming years. And we're in the process of hiring a number of key staff to ensure that that can run smoothly. Looking forward to the year, we've got Starbucks grant implementation. That's actually right now where Alice and Christine and Leston and Bridget are. They're in Mount Elgon, and they are in the process of just implementing that grant project there. We've got another huge project happening with Health Relief International, that is not only a really big partner, but also has a number of very important government relationships and connections, which they're helping us to integrate into. We're also working with UNFPA on a number of different things, including partnership opportunities, a potential joint study in Kenya for data and monitoring, learning and evaluation. We also just co-published an article with UNFPA for International Women's Day. And then Janet, so for those of you who have not heard of Janet, Janet's an incredible menstrual health advocate in Kenya, and she's written a book called My First Time, and the second printing of that is about to be published, and there's 5 stories in that book from Days for Girls enterprise leaders throughout the world. Rosemary from Kenya, one of the enterprise leaders, is one of those stories, and there's also information about Days for Girls included in that book. So this is a quick snapshot of where we are at in Kenya right now. So we have a Kenya board of directors, we have a program manager in Bridget, we've got a new resource centre and new resource centre staff on the way. We have our incredible social enterprise leaders, their seamstresses and the local educators and advocates, really positioned with a huge team of strength. We currently have 22 enterprises, 6 gold certified, 10 certified in training who are right on the cusp of getting their gold certification. We have 6 new enterprises in training as part of the new cohort and various partnerships that we're working on. We also have a number of other enterprises that are registered in the system that are in the process of moving into the certified in training position. And as I mentioned already, we've got some really big partnerships already secured and coming down the pipeline in terms of multilaterals, UN agencies, the Kenyan government. And so 2021, I think, is going to be an even bigger year for Days for Girls in Kenya. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. So thank you. That was just a really, as brief as possible, overview of a bit of a history of Days for Girls in Kenya. So now I want to jump right into what we've all been waiting for and what we've all come here for, which is to engage with some of our amazing local leaders in Kenya. So let's begin by introducing them. We will start with Anita. Anita, I would love if you could introduce yourself to everybody and share a little bit about yourself and your Days for Girls social enterprise. And I'd really love to hear from you about 2020 and what happened in your county and with Jacqueline and your response to that and what you've done in your community.
All right, thank you so much, Layla, for this opportunity. I'll start with my name. I'm Anita Cherono from Bomet County. I'm the Bomet Days for Girls Enterprise leader. We founded our enterprise in the year 2017. That is when we got the training in Uganda and were able to start making our kits from the local community. And currently, as a Bomet enterprise, we have 15 women that are sewing and around 4 men that have also joined us to be able to work with us to reach out to the girls. And looking at what we've been able to do with the local sewing center, apart from the shipment or the kits that came from outside, what we've been able to do from the enterprise since we started, I would give it around 20,000 kits that have been made locally in our enterprise and that have been able to reach out to the girls. And talking a little bit about Bomet County. Bomet County is in the Rift Valley province that is in Kenya. Basically, we are in the middle of Narok County, that's the Masai Mara. We also reach out to the Kisii County and also to the Kericho County. So in our enterprise, we are serving around 3 other counties that are also looking up to us for support and for us to be able to reach out to the girls out there. And as Layla mentioned, that looking at what we've been able to do in the year 2020, I would really appreciate the support that we received from DFGI since with the lockdown, we were not able to get any shipment, any donation from any fabric donation from anywhere else. So we want to look at what can we actually do locally in Kenya. And with the support of DFGI and the local government as an enterprise, we've worked so closely with our local leaders. And when the pandemic hit, what we had worked on initially, we were looking at the communities and providing the mask. That was the very major issue. And we realized that during our own process of making the mask and distributing to the communities, we were not solving everything because you could find that our girls was training. Women were not having what they need to use, especially during the menstrual days. And we sat down with the leaders and looked at the funding that was available and said, giving out masks to the women is not enough. So we had to sit down and look at what else we could do to provide them with with the kids too. So we finally had some small funding from the government, and we were able to make masks at the same time, Days for Girls Kids, that at that time alone, we reached to almost 5,000 girls in just the year 2020 with the mask and the menstrual kits. And that, as a county in Bomet, we just had a year that we had lost a girl. Layla had mentioned in the year 2019, September, we lost a girl by the name Jacqueline. She was 14-year old. She had gone to school on a normal day, and not knowing what will happen that day, she got her periods while in class. And because this girl was not prepared she didn't even know what was happening in her body, and there's blood in her clothes. She had to endure that shame of having to walk out from the classroom to go home because she had soiled her dress. Didn't go well with her. And Jacqueline went home. She met her mother, and the mom asked her, "Why are you home so early?" And she said, "I've soiled my dress. There's blood in my dress. I don't know what's happening." And that time, she didn't also get someone to explain to her. So she decided to go to the river. We don't have bathrooms or bathtubs in our homes. Mostly people go out to the river to do clothing or to take a bath. So she went to the river, and Jacqueline ended her life there. She took a rope with her when she was going to the river, and she hung herself. And that incident kind of hit us in the county because we had not done enough to, give out that education to ensure that the girls had what they needed. And I would say since 2019 as an enterprise, we've worked so closely with our leaders to ensure that all the girls actually are getting a kit. And I've just looking at the women that have also come to work at the enterprise. I would say, this is something that was had so much. I would put it as a taboo. There's a lot of stigma. I would use the right word, is stigma surrounding menstruation. And many a times, even the parents themselves are not taking that time to educate their daughters. The fathers are not even taking that opportunity to engage them when they're getting to that stage of adolescence. And 2020 for us has taught us a lot because we, as a government in Kenya, we have some disposable free sanitary program that's running. But during the pandemic, the schools were all closed, and those girls could not access the washable or not the sanitary pads in school. So again, there was a lot of struggle at home. Looking at the families that live with $1 a day, providing or just considering to buy a sanitary pad is not an option because that $1 goes for food, and mostly the sanitary pads is not given is not given as priority. It comes as the very last thing that they could do. And just being there as an enterprise to be able to say, hey, we can provide a solution. It's not a 1 month, it's not a 2 month solution. This is a 3-year plus solution for our girls. It's just phenomenal. It's the best thing we could have offered as an enterprise. Thank you. I think that's all I can say, Layla. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita. Thank you so much for all of your work in the community and for really stepping up at such a challenging time. Okay, I think we will next throw it over to Alice. Hi, Alice. If you can introduce yourself and share with everybody how you're involved with Days for Girls. And we'd just love to hear about some partnerships and some of the efforts and work that you've been doing in Kenya.
Thank you. So first, I'm very happy to be surrounded by amazing team as I share about this and for the amazing work we are doing in Mount Elgon. This team is just phenomenal, and it brings some new energies when enterprise leaders have an opportunity to work together as a team. So anyways, talking about the work we've been doing with enterprises, my enterprise is called Smile Studies, based in Nakuru, Kenya, and as other many enterprises in Kenya. And we've been able to do different outreach, reaching out to girls, boys, training in different places. But when and how we started the enterprise is because of the personal shame I went through as an individual when I was a teenager. And I was walking in a class waiting to do the national exam, which is final, just 2 days to the national exam. And that's when my period starts. I didn't have much information about it or what was happening to my body because of the culture. Um, in Africa or in Kenya or where I come from, that is not a topic that is put on table to discuss much or say much about it. And so for me, it was so traumatizing just realizing I was wet and looking, I had blood. And this male teacher walks in and say, hey, we need to revise for the exam that is coming in 2 days. And this is a huge exam that happened in Kenya. It transits you from, primary to high school. And he walked in class and said, I need to call somebody to respond to a question. And at this time, I was like, oh gosh, I hope he doesn't mention my name. And unfortunately, that's what happened. He called on my name. And I could not actually stand up because I was so confused. So you can imagine the confusion that goes around to so many girls around the world, not just in Kenya, when they don't understand about their body or the changes or what is happening. And so he walked towards me and he slapped me so heavily on my face. And he said, you have to see me after this because I think you're rude. You didn't stand up when I asked you to. So I was trying to look at him with a face to show I'm going through something, but I was not able to communicate because, again, this is something you can never mention to a man, in the culture we come from those days. And so for me, it was such a hard thing. And then a girl told me, my grandmother said, when this start, you're cursed. And I couldn't understand, why am I cursed? What wrong have I done? And then the second thing I was told, boys don't experience this. And I didn't understand, why is it that I have to experience this and not boys? The other thing I was told, this will be happening every day. So you can imagine all this wrong information I'm getting, that I have to bleed every day, not even a few days in a month. Then I thought, why? I want to understand why boys, they don't get it. And I want to become a boy actually. So I was told there is a tree you can go around 8 times and you can transform to be a boy. And so that's when I developed the interest of going with my brothers to look after the cows and goat. Not because I liked the hobby, but because of my goal and what I wanted to achieve. But all this time, because of the culture and the shame attached to menstruation, I could not even share with my mom or with any other person in the community, maybe a little bit in my sister. For 3 months, I went around different trees. Nothing was happening. Nothing was changing. And then to cut the long story short, I was lucky to go to high school. And so I didn't go to the school I desired. I was one of the best performing students. But because of the ordeal I went through with the menstrual shame, I failed my exams. And so I ended up going to a very low standard school in the village where I had to walk 80 kilometers. And after 3 weeks in that school, a team came from a company called Always. They taught about menstruation and they gave us 1 pack of sanitary pad. That is the moment I celebrated being a girl. And I said to myself, I wrote a promise that still exists in my mother's place, that when I get education, I want to be the last girl on planet Earth to experience this ordeal. So it was born out of pain and passion of what I went through that we started an enterprise. So in 2017, I joined my master's and I was doing a research on menstrual health. And I did on menstrual health. So I was sent in different villages to do a research and I was finding out what girls go through. Different thing, the worst you will never expect. Sometimes when we give these stories in Zoom meetings and other places, people sometimes may think, this is a sugar-coated story. But when you're on the ground, then you experience a different image altogether. Because when we talk of girl using leaves from tree or feathers, or girls sitting on holes, or using rag, these are things we have come across or even experienced them ourselves. So after the research, I was doing like a voluntary work in an orphanage and I meet a woman from the US who happened to be my mentor today. But At that moment, I was doing the disposable pad, trying to fundraise, started the club at the university, purchasing one pad or several, giving to a school. Then we realized after every month they are calling. So when she realized, she said, I would like to introduce you to my friend who is visiting Kenya. And she worked with doTERRA company, my mentor, Corina. And she told me about this for girls. She said, do you want to know a more lasting solution? Because the work you're doing is just phenomenal. And I said, yeah, I'm so interested. At first, when she mentioned washable pads, I was like, hey, what is the difference between that and the rag that we've been using? And then she bought 100 pack from Uganda, and we trained 100 women. That is in 2017. That is even before I joined Days for Girls officially. When I saw the package, I wanted it myself because of how nice it is presented. And so she introduced me to Days for Girls, went to Uganda in 2018 August. We were trained there, came back to Kenya, and officially, I would say we started Smile Start in 2019 January, because that's when we made the first kit and took to a county called Kitui. So working with Days for Girls, distributing these kits, and even seeing how much it is touching the lives of girls, it was amazing. But along the way, we realized again there was a gap somewhere. We are doing amazing, we are impacting girls, we are taking these kits, but there is a question. What about boys? What do you do about them? And then we realized that some boys, the question they were asking sounded like a revenge. And then we are talking of teenage pregnancy. We are talking, take care of our girls. But they felt like, why is it you focus so much on a girl? She's so empowered, nothing is said about us. And then that's how we changed the narrative and started training both boys and girls. And I want to say Days for Girls, especially Kenya, is truly lucky and blessed to have Leston. I wish you listen this man talking. Like in Mount Elgon, he talked to a woman, an old woman who is I think between 70 and 80 years old. And when Leston was talking, why is it important to engage men in Days for Girls or the work we are doing? I really love his approach. The first thing he said, the girls are our sisters, they are our wives, they are our, friends or daughters, because he might get a daughter. That was the first approach. And every woman is smiling, to imagine how men are involved. And then the second thing he asked, who buy a lot of things at home when there is a need? It is the father. And he asked, do they buy those? And the woman was like, oh, no. That is a girl thing you can never mention to a man. And I just love how he approached the whole thing, that woman, even at her age, she said, oh, today I'm going to talk to my son and tell him I met a man today talking about this. So this is how much it is important for us to involve the men who know component and having men getting involved to talk about also the subject. So he's the best example at this point I can ever use that we have witnessed. And Days for Girls Kenya as a team, they can all attest to what I'm saying. So by including men and boys, our work started expanding. We have witnessed male clients coming to purchase kits from our enterprise, leave alone through donation or anything. Local, I'm talking of local leaders. And one of them was the chief of the area, and he's a male. During COVID-19, it was so challenging. And, receiving a lot of help or support. And our local chief was walking around with us also to ensure we have security, because it was like, stay at home. You must have a mask or something like that, walking around with us, talking to women and girls about the subject. It encourages your heart to see how much men are involved. So talking about Smile Start, we started with a team of two seamstresses and me as an enterprise leader. So we started 3. But to date, as we talk, we are a team of 26. Why has this team grown to this far? And just like many other enterprises, I always say because of the collective efforts globally. This is through the volunteers, through the mentors, through the enterprise leader, government. Days for Girls International is a collective of efforts that have come together to grow these enterprises. When we receive these orders, and amazing Days for Girls International has been such a huge support, and especially during our red line campaigns. Also, so thankful to Marianne, who is in this platform, because I understand she's a mentor of specific enterprise, which is Chumvi, where Leston comes from. Marianne, you should be so proud of Leston. I wish you witness him train one day. And you know, the fact that she's a mentor of a specific enterprise, I remember I have benefited because of, at some point, we have received different supplies that we were lacking at the enterprise, including the labels, the machine for cutting. And also we received the kits that we were allowed to sell. So that also meant a lot to 8 enterprises in Kenya. She also worked a lot to help these 8 enterprises gain gold. So that is something that will forever be unforgettable. We would have never been where we are today to speak, because when you go to the government with that certificate of gold, they recognize you with all the respect as somebody who is doing something that is good and quality. So thanks to you, Marianne, because you're also in this meeting. And to summarize, is that we've been able to partner with different chapters and team, and also government, and amazing partnership, like you mentioned before. There is a team from Australia called Camberwell, if I'm not wrong, where Carol comes from. So when we were doing our Red Line campaign, they were able to support us with 100 smart starter kits. So they purchased them from us and asked us to make sure we give to 100 girls and to share the photos and the videos of what we did. Because of that, when we shared, their friends they are part of the Rotary Club in Melbourne, in Australia. They also shared with them what they were able to do in Kenya. And so the team invited me and Bridget. Bridget has also done amazing work in advocacy and trying to do a lot of networking for enterprises. And so when we were in that meeting with her, they were able to, to get to the Zoom, they were paying a fee or a ticket, and they were able to raise $1,000 that they sent also to the enterprise for us to give kits to 100 girls. But when I was going to give the 100, the school had 500 girls. And so because of the first partnership we did with the Camberwell Days for Girls chapter, they were easily able to trust or see what we are doing, and they supported the whole process for us to distribute the 500 Smart Starter kits. So that is an amazing partnership that has happened between a chapter and an enterprise. And also we had a friend back in 2018 who visited from Idaho Hall. She's called Brenda Merchant. And they were able to bring, I think, half of the kits and ordered half from the enterprise. And so we were able to do like a distribution together. So basically speaking, I know there are so many amazing things that have been happening that sometimes it's so overwhelming, or so we are so happy for what is happening that I may not really mention everything, but we are truly grateful. And there is a huge growth within enterprises that is happening. So thanks.
Thank you, Alice. Thank you so much for sharing your story. We really appreciate it. So inspirational. Okay, we will move over across to Bridget now. As I mentioned earlier, Bridget is our Days for Girls Kenya program manager. So Bridget, Alice, is Bridget still with you? Yeah. Oh, there you are. You're in the same room, but on the different phone. Hi, Bridget.
Yes.
I would love it if you could introduce yourself to everybody and share about your role at Days for Girls. And I'd love to hear about some of the advocacy and partnerships you've been working on and the grant implementation that you've been working on.
All right. Thank you, Layla. My name is Bridget Kurgat, the Kenya Days for Girls Programs Manager, and I've been privileged to work with a very strong team here in Kenya for the last 7 months. And I can say the last 7 months has been incredible. I'll start by mentioning how enterprises have worked with their local governments and their communities to provide affordable menstrual products, as well as menstrual health education. I'll also want to talk about our partnership with Village Enterprise under the Starbucks grant. Village Enterprise is an international NGO that works to eradicate poverty. And here in Kenya, we work in Mount Elgon region. We've also had partnership with Health Relief International, and Health Relief International, Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, as well as Ministry of Devolution. And the project is funded by the Turkish Embassy. So that is a big win for us. We've also managed to have some kind of partnership with UNFPA to conduct a joint study, and we've done some joint posts, something that is going on. That is also a big win for us. And Days for Girls was also able to be in the committee of Ministry of Health that championed for the standardization of the reusable sanitary towels. So that is just in brief, but I'd like to say that in terms of menstrual equity advocacy, I would like to say that our enterprises are doing an amazing job, even through our partnerships coming in to join me to advocate for menstrual equity as something that has really made me admire Days for Girls, being a newcomer. We've had the menstrual policy stating that mothers are the primary people who talk to girls about menstrual health education, but most of the time they only talk about pregnancy. That's it, nothing more. So when a girl starts to menstruate, they're all about do not dare get pregnant, but they are not told about what's happening to their bodies. So this is where our enterprise leaders come in. They go into the community, teach our girls about how our bodies function, and they are able to break these menstrual taboos. For example, here in Mount Elgon, we realize that when you're in your menstrual periods, you're not supposed to put your clothes inside the house, like it's a sign of bad luck. Women here also believe that you're not supposed to participate in any kind of activity, including going to school, if you don't have the right product. And for them, the right product is always like, that's the only thing they know. They do not know about any other menstrual option. And that is where DFG comes in Mount Elgon, coming to tell the community that there is an alternative to the disposable sanitary towel. Another story that touched my heart is DFG working hand in hand with Ministry of Interior here in Mount Elgon, and we had the DCC chiefs and assistant chiefs talking about menstruation. Imagine how amazing it is hosting a government meeting just to talk about periods. And even the chiefs themselves would say that they have never budgeted for menstrual health products. They do not even know the cost of menstruation in their households, and for them that is not something to budget for. And it was such an opportunity to start changing community attitude right from the top to the bottom, because remember, there we have the deputy county commissioner acknowledging that there's a problem, and also up to the village elders acknowledging that actually menstruation is a problem. So you can imagine something that has been in existence forever looking like it's something shocking, like, oh my God, menstruation affects our girls and women in different ways. When we come to HRI, we are partnering under a project called Better Women Empowerment, Better Health for Women through Women Empowerment. And here we are working jointly with governments, with the ministries. HRI is such a big NGO that has also opened doors for us, where we also have Beyond Zero headed by the First Lady. And it has been such an honor, even being part of the Turkish Embassy. We are now listed as an organization that can be funded by the Turkish Embassy through that, because they went through our background check, asked about what we've been doing in Kenya, and they were so amazed. And one thing the Turkish government noted was that they've never found organization that has sustainable solutions for menstrual health, and they were wondering why they had not heard of Days for Girls. And they were like open, and they were like, our doors are open, you can come anytime if you need any funding, as long as it is within our scope. So that was such a big win for us. And we also had UNFPA coming in. And I'd also want to acknowledge Diana, Nelson, and Haley. They are amazing. They've really been mentoring me, and we've been working together in these advocacy efforts. So UNFPA even coming in, trying to see how we can mobilize organizations, start talking about menstruation in newspapers, in different media outlets, will be such a big win for DFG being there as the head. And then I'd also like to talk about, you know, the overall scope. Like sometimes we put advocacy aside and separate it from, you know, the enterprise side, but it goes hand in hand. It is only through advocacy that we are able to change the attitudes of people for them to buy these products. Through our social media pages, courtesy of our enterprises, the stories they say there, that is where we get orders. And that is how we reach many women. And the good thing about Kenya having 17 enterprises is that we are able to have locally led solutions. This means that our enterprises are able to know the situations affecting their communities, because we can't assume that our communities are homogeneous here in Kenya. What is a taboo in Rift Valley is not the same thing in the coastal areas. And this is where we see, and this is where I see our enterprises having their strengths. They're able to have locally led solutions, and also they're able to, you know, capacity build themselves. Now during this pandemic, we are able to see our enterprises working beyond their expectations of the entire team, even during a pandemic. That means that, you know, they are being capacity built to do things on their own. And then we are able to economically empower our women, you know, through those advocacy approaches where we now get orders, we now get joint partnerships. This means that most women in Kenya are able to cater for their families. They are able to be sustainable, like even in Mount Elgon region where the literacy levels are so low. When you come here, they only know their local language. They know nothing about menstruation. They know nothing about, you know, starting a business. And here comes DFG bringing in partnerships to empower them. It's just an amazing transformation. But all in all, I'd like to say that this has been a joint effort, enterprise leaders, DFG, DFGI staff, to see this amazing journey that Kenya has gone through. Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget. Thank you so much for sharing those incredible partnerships and advocacy efforts that are taking place all over Kenya. And something I really liked that you shared was that it's so important to have local leaders throughout the country, because it's not a homogenous place. There's different taboos, different stigmas, different beliefs in different communities. And so to have local leaders spread throughout Kenya with an understanding of their own communities is just incredibly important. So thank you for touching on that. Okay. Before we move on to our chapter and team leaders, I just wanted to ask one final question of our enterprise leaders and Kenya local leaders. Perhaps Anita or Alice might like to answer this one. I know a lot of chapters, teams and solo sewers volunteers on the call today are wondering, what is the best way that volunteers can support the work that you're doing in Kenya, or partner with you, collaborate with you? To reach women and girls?
Anita, go first.
Anita, would you like to go first?
All right, there you go. All right, thank you for that question, Layla. And I want to say thank you so much for the chapters that are already working with the enterprises across the world. And just to emphasize on this, looking at having the local products locally made, I want to just share what I've experienced myself at the enterprise, looking at the women that are making these kits in our enterprises. I have a story of one lady that has worked with us since inception, since we started the enterprise, and just making these kits. She does this with passion, knowing that she has daughters, and what she's doing is reaching out and helping someone out there. I just want to share a story of this lady. When we started in 2017 with this lady, we trained her. She was one of the women who went to Uganda for a training. And before then, we had taken 2 of our daughters for a full scholarship in high school. And I want to testify this. Since that lady has worked with us in the year 2017, with the rest of the children in school, she's actually been able to just educate our children without seeking for any further support, because she's earning something that is able to provide for her children. So I just want to say or to emphasize on how important that is for the enterprises to be able to do these kits locally, and how the chapters could support us is the question. I know on our website, chapters are able to order, you can order kits for a specific location. And since we have enterprises across Kenya, around 17 of them, you can actually support these enterprises instead of having to make the kits on the other end. I would say that these enterprises locally could be made, and just doing an order direct to them would be a best way of doing it. Another support could be how Marianne has been able to do. Alice had mentioned this. We've been able to get supplies sometimes back from with the effort of Marianne that we could use. Just getting, sometimes she sends fabric, she gives us the machinery that we need. So I'm looking at an open situation whereby chapters could really, support enterprises in all these other locations. Just identify which ones you could look at and the needs. It might not be direct funding a full kit, but basically looking at what other ways you could do it. Sending some supplies. Sometimes we find hard to find even the snaps in Kenya. They're expensive in Kenya, and chapters could support in enterprises even getting those snaps, if that is available or can easily be shipped. So I would leave it open, but so much has happened just in the 2020 in Kenya because enterprises were empowered to be able to make the kits locally. I'll leave Alice to add something on that too. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita. Just to add on what she has said, first is to really appreciate the teams and chapter volunteers for the tremendous work they have done in the past, even before the enterprises existed, and the great networks they created where we are building our networks from. But just like Anita has said, there are so many amazing ways that we feel teams and chapters comes in to support the enterprises. She has mentioned of purchasing kits or supporting with the supplies, but also when they visit like Kenya or any other country to do the voluntary work or program with us at the enterprise. Last year, an amazing thing happened with a team from Canada. They came and they volunteered at the enterprise for a day or two. And as I talk, we have another volunteer from Holland who is a relative from them. She's Sandra. And actually, we've been able to do a lot together, going around and also working at the enterprise with us. And 3 years ago, they came to Kenya, but they brought a lot of kits by then. But this time, like Sandra didn't came or the team didn't came with anything because of the aspect of the impact zone that has been trying to be explained and how much impact is happening. When a volunteer come and they experience on the ground what I'm trying to say, it's a whole new picture to them in their mind, more than what we may try to explain. As Anita said, that when you look at the women and men who are working at these enterprises, we had one woman, let me just give this example, because this is Days for Girls, like family here. We had some women, and a specific one who was working in the brothel, like sex worker. And when we opened we were doing the enterprise program, and so many are coming to us for opportunity to work there. And sometimes we are so limited because of resources and the numbers of orders we are able to get, because we depend on these orders. Like we are social enterprises with an income generating factor and bringing economic empowerment. And so when they were asking for an opportunity to work there, and you're trying to tell them, oh, we are not able at the moment, but we will try to see what we can do. So the next time you meet her doing those things on the street and she tell you, I'm doing this because I'm still waiting the day you give me an opportunity. And sometimes it's also so difficult for us. So for our team to grow from where it was to having 16 women working at the enterprise, some are widows, some I'm telling you the things they used to do. But today they can get an income. It doesn't matter how small or big it is, but it is something that helps them to put food on the table. And it is through the amazing, partners and volunteers and mentors and friends who comes through to purchase these kits or support the enterprise, either through donation or purchasing directly the kits and telling us even to take to specific place where they have, done these networks before. I feel like going forward, it can be an amazing thing, because one of the challenge personally I experienced, I went to a place in my county and I was talking to a group of women about the kit. But when I mentioned about selling it, they actually thought I was trying to fraud the organization, because to them, this kit has always been donated. And I tried to say that was happening before. But now they are trying to empower women in different places to make and sell these kits. And we are one of those certified enterprises. So the women were trying to ask me, why is it then we are not the one doing it ourselves, given that opportunity to make those kits? If you truly say that we are supposed to buy, or you are trying to market for people to buy the kit and not to receive it for free as what we are used to. So sometimes those are the challenges we might get when we are trying to look at a win-win solution going forward, working together with the amazing volunteers and friends who ship the kits directly here. But one, I remember at some point where we benefited through the shipped kits is when Marianne sent to the enterprises but said, please, you can sell it. So we were able to sell that because you could not feel the guilt you are given to give for free, then you are selling it. It was open for us to sell. So that is the only time I can remember through a kit that's been brought. So, but the moment we have the teams and chapter, maybe visiting a country, you have this connection for a long time with a certain village or a group of people, which you really want to maintain. I would encourage partnering with an enterprise because of sustainability aspect. You see, when they come, they never stay in Kenya for 3 years, or it's just a month or some weeks and they are back. But for us, we are here forever, or maybe we are working for more time. When you try now to bring in the community, trying to tell them we are doing this also for economic empowerment, the picture is no longer there. And they actually think you are trying to do something behind those who've been there backs. So it can be a very nice system. And what I would recommend personally is to have a guideline that will guide all of us with enterprise leaders and volunteers, teams and chapter on how we can go about it together, so that at the end of the day, it's more win-win. We are empowering. In as much as we are giving a gala kit, we are also uplifting the welfare of the communities where we live, and that we are trying to, economically empower them. But I'm so glad for this kind of an open forum and to have some of them. But I think there are those who never worked with an enterprise. There are those who come as individuals. They don't know if an enterprise is existing somewhere, or I'm not sure about that. So it can be also good for girls to put efforts in trying to reach out to all these volunteers to understand which place have they been visiting. Do we have an enterprise around that place? Because again, it may not be really like their fault or something. So they don't even know if an enterprise exists in the area. And I believe once they know, they are willing to work together and partner, so that going forward, we are uplifting each other and not a situation where they come and impact the community in a very huge way. You come back, you're trying to build your social enterprise from there, but then nothing happens because they will always wait for the free kit that is being brought from the US or somewhere else. So those are my few inputs.
Thank you, Alice. Thank you. I appreciate that, Alice. And thank you, Anita, as well, for your input earlier. Okay, thank you to Alice and Anita and Bridget for all of your sharing all of that amazing information with us and all of your insights and stories. We're now going to turn to the next session in our webinar today to hear from some of our chapter leaders around the world who have been involved in Kenya in various capacities throughout the years. So I'd like to start with Kathy Erickson. Kathy is one of the team leaders of the Twin Cities, Minnesota team. And Kathy, I'll let you share with everybody how you're involved with Days for Girls, particularly in Kenya, and your experience so far.
Okay. Kathy Erickson from Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I want to say thank you to all of you first, and to say I am so humbled by even having the word mentor in the same sentence, because you all are the ones who mentor us. And my personal mentor was on the call. She's probably still there, Christine, because Christine is the first one I met. I was in Kenya doing a different project with preschool teachers for a few years, and became aware of the issue at a girls' high school near Homa Bay. And thinking about it, went to Nairobi, met Christine, and she did an interview for us that was filmed that was fabulous, and introduced us to a young woman, Rachel, that we're still connected with. So Christine all along has been the one that has helped me to see what is this about? What is that about? What should we do about this? How can we help you with that? So probably 5 years ago or so, we met Christine. We met a woman, Agnes, who worked in one of the schools that we were going to do this other teaching project. She was a tailor. She was very interested in Days for Girls and said, you know, I could do that. I could do that. So she started by working with Christine and making some kits herself, and eventually decided she couldn't stay tailoring at the school where she was being paid. She had to start an enterprise herself to be able to really grow and make the money. So my husband and I helped her go to the training in Uganda and get started with machines and supplies. She was sewing at home for quite a while, and then eventually got a shop. So we worked with Agnes for quite a long time. And then we met Rosemary. My husband has done some projects there too. So she came to something he was doing. We met her. She really wanted to be an enterprise. So we began with training. And I don't even know how you do training anymore. But at that time, it was going to Uganda for 11 days, which is a big investment for women to make, to do all that travel and arrange their families around that. So we helped Rosemary and her niece, Evelyn, to get machines. And then we had been going once or twice a year until we were supposed to go last June, and away went that, you know. So we have just tried to be supportive in terms of when we go, we usually have 3 or 4 people from our team. We usually bring about 500 kits, and more recently especially have tried to pay Agnes and Rosemary to make kits before we go. So that's been our focus, is the 2 of them. Then we've gone together and learned from them and shared in the training, and tried to give each other ideas for growth. So being involved with the enterprise, I think, is what has grown our team here and made it exciting, because women keep seeing the pictures. They send the pictures to us, we send the pictures out, the videos, they get excited about it. So we have about 30 people who normally come, other than COVID, and it has been a great excitement to them. So what I have seen, first of all, is just the partnerships that have been made. We had a driver, Salim, still do when he comes, who came to every single presentation with us, which was usually about 14 presentations each time we went. And he learned the presentation so well that he would remind us if we were missing something, which was just really fun. And then realized, as he was talking to the boys, he needed to take the Men Who Know training. And so he began to meet with the boys while we were meeting with the girls. And he now is especially attached to Agnes and does a lot of work with her. He took the training so that he could take kits from Agnes to Mombasa, to his home village, and do the training himself out in villages. His wife goes with him, but he does that training. It's tremendously fun, especially to watch him do the self-defense demonstrations. Then also we had met a woman, Sister Felly, a Carmelite sister, before I ever knew about Days for Girls. She got excited when we started doing Days for Girls. She's in Nairobi. She has partnered with Agnes now and has started her own fundraising organization. And so we've been matching funds with them. She said, I've never heard of matching funds. I don't know what you mean. So I said, well, it means, you know, you raise the money for 100 kits. We will raise the money for 100 kits and we'll send it to you and then you can deliver 200 kits. So they've really had some good success with that. So they've been working together and going to a variety of places. Okay, let's see. During the pandemic, of course, when we couldn't go, we have an excellent seamstress who came to us from Marianne's chapter, actually, Karen Bovard. And she and our fundraising person found that Karen could make these gorgeous masks for kind of a high-end grocery store chain, Kowalski's. And they would sell them for 10 and give us 5. And we made about $18,000 last year doing that. Isn't that amazing? And so most of that money now has gone to between Agnes, Rosemary, a little bit Christine, but to the other two in particular to make kits, hire people and take them out. Now that's not a great project that's going to keep going here after pandemic. So we've got to try to find some other things, but having a team here with diverse skills really helps to do that. Okay, so I think another thing now that we can help to start with after a mentor meeting was to be coaching with Agnes and Rosemary about how to get a space ready for a factory type inspection and what's needed, what's it going to cost, how can we help with those expenses. So we've had a great time with them. It's the best time of my life. Thank you,
Kathy. Thank you so much, Kathy, for all of your hard work. That's amazing to hear all of those different ways that you've been involved over the years. Thank you. Christine and Leston are there. They were like, yay!
Christine knows Salim too, so she knows what I'm talking about.
Ah, okay. Thanks, Kathy. Okay, next up we have Erin from the Montpelier, Vermont team. Erin, would you like to take it away?
Yes, thanks. And this is my daughter, Lucia, who wants to sit in. She's been helping with our team since we started 6 years ago this spring.
Amazing.
And we are a small team in relatively rural Vermont with 10 regular members and about 30 people that come and go in different groups. And we've sent out an average of 300 Days for Girls kits a year since we started. But when the pandemic hit, we had 125 we had just packed to go with a local team heading to Nicaragua, and their flight was canceled, and you know the rest. And we had already been working, occasionally sending monies to the enterprise in Bomet. Hello. We have teams and local groups that do fundraising for us or donate their proceeds to us, and we had enough materials to sew. And so in May 2019, I saw a Facebook post from a woman named Lorna Wanyama in Busia, Kenya. And she runs a community resilience initiative called Together Rising. And it just struck me as, wow, what a great way to send some of our funds and make a connection in a way that other than sewing and in my dining room right here where the magic happens. So we sent some funds to her, and then she ordered kits through her local enterprise. And it was just so joyful to see the pictures come back and know that in an immediate way, those funds were applied to help girls around the world. And if you sew, that immediate isn't usually the return rate. It's a long process, sewing and mailing and waiting for pallets to be sent on container ships. So that was really exciting. And then once the pandemic hit, our group switched to sewing masks, and I was leaving materials in my driveway and leaving masks clothespin to a clothesline on my front porch for community members to pick up. And a lot of people wanted to buy them or donate. So we just started telling them, you know, you don't have to, but if you donate money, we're going to be sending it to a group in Kenya that will be providing these kits. And so since then, we've sent out 2,500 masks to Central Vermont and have sent funds that have purchased about another 500 kits to be distributed through the Bomet Enterprise and Together Rising. And it's just been the most amazing experience. Usually our group is low on funds and high on sewing skill. And so it was really nice to be able to make that pivot, but also to have the funds that we were able to collect do something so important right away. I mean, it's hard to stress how exciting it was to send the funds and very quickly see smiling faces that I could share with our team and say, even when we're stuck in our houses and we feel like we can't make any progress, that nothing's happening, things are happening. And I keep telling Lorna, it's been a real privilege to be able to contribute in this way because we aren't the ones doing the hard work. She has an incredibly organized, effective group that reaches out to boys and girls and men and women to spread this message and make her community a stronger place. And she's made it feel like we're a part of that, which is really wonderful when you feel so disconnected. And like Anita was saying, I also feel like we're sending money from a place that has plenty to somewhere where it can make a difference in the lives of women. And it's so important to support women in enterprises who are not only supporting their communities through their sewing, but also able to earn money for their families, for themselves, to support their own lives. And so being able to be a part of that has been really wonderful. I think that's what I had to say.
Thank you so much, Erin. Thank you. That's amazing. And I didn't know that it was Bomet County that you were connected with. That's amazing.
Well, just the Facebook, so.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Okay, we'll move across to Mary Ann and Ralph Strout from Orange, Connecticut chapter.
Well, first of all, hello to all our Kenyan friends. We're so happy to see all of you, exciting. So this is my husband, Ralph. I'm Mary Ann. What really started our journey was in 2008, my husband had the opportunity to go to Kenya to do an HIV/AIDS workshop in Chumvi that had been going on for a long time. And when they realized he was a physician, they brought him to see clinics. And then the next thing I knew, he called me from Kenya and said, you and I are going to start a nonprofit. And I said, sure. And it was that simple, a leap of faith, and we were in. And then what happened was we began Kenyan Healthcare Initiative. So our niche was healthcare. In 2013, when I first went over, the nurse that was traveling with us, Catherine Sentu, came to me and said, if you really want to help, the girls need menstrual products. At that moment, our lives changed forever. And it really took us about a year to figure out what we could do because we knew we could not do disposable. That was not workable. And there was this tiny article, which many of you probably saw in Oprah, and that began our journey. And then I flew out to Washington State and spent a week at Days for Girls, where Celeste was our teacher. And besides that, it created this bond. And I began to really understand everything that was happening. So we came home and we started the first chapter, Connecticut chapter of Days for Girls, as well as with a blind leap of faith said, we'll start a sewing center in Chumvi. And we were headed to Chumvi in a short time. So we, with a couple friends, we made a few kits to see if they would even be interested, because we really do believe that it has to come from them. What is their need? What is it that they want? It does not come from us. Well, the response was overwhelming. People were stopping us on the street. Those are the people. And I was like, oh, what's happening? So we had never been to understand where the sewing center was going to be, and we just started it. And what we found was that they had collected 20 women of which only 3 or 4 knew how to sew. And we started from that point. At the same time, here in Connecticut, our chapter grew exponentially. And before we knew it, we would have these huge sew-a-thons, and we would have 100 people. And now if you can figure out how to do a sew-a-thon with 100 people and everybody having a job, plus the connection other people have mentioned was that you can, because we were giving people a personal experience, because we were sharing stories, because we were showing photos, they felt connected to the work that we were doing in Kenya. And Days for Girls is really one part of what we do. And that is really how we grew. So if we're going back to Kenya now, we had many, many challenges. There were many false starts. And we have to tell you, we never, ever did our own distribution. We only ever worked through the enterprises. Most of our time there, along with Eileen Kelly, who's on this call somewhere, and our team, we went there and we taught. That's all we did, was we would be in the sewing center, teaching them how to sew, how to become a unified group working together, how to know that these were the different components. You had to be an expert in each component before you could get to the next component. How do you market? What is it you say? How you give a handshake? I mean, giving a handshake, a woman, and looking in somebody's eyes is something that's not cultural. We spent a lot of time. We had Diva and Diana came down from Uganda. We sent members of Days for Girls to Uganda, always working together. And at that point we were going, and for many years, we went twice a year for several weeks. KHCI, which is our nonprofit, we funded everything. We funded their supplies, their machines, we sent materials, we would bring kits. And no, we didn't sell the kits, we gave them to the enterprise so that working together, they had a base support to work from. So they could begin to introduce kits, the concept, the teaching, all at the same time, and didn't have that burden that they couldn't produce quality, because sometimes we would go there, we talk about quality, and we would end up throwing out a lot because it was not the quality that we needed. And that is truly, truly how we began. You know, one story I'll tell you is one of our sewers' name is Esther. Esther is now the sewing specialist for Chumvi. She'd never seen a sewing machine. Many of them didn't even know what a needle was. Esther only speaks Swahili and Ma, and by simply watching us all the time, she became the expert. You could show her something, and the next day she would come in, she'd stay, she would give it back to you. This is what you made. And by the way, I made this too. You know, she watched us put in a zipper, and the next day she put in her own zipper in her own way. So those are the stories. And I think what happens is when you're working with an enterprise, everybody gains. And so we become part of their lives, they become part of our lives. And we learn, the elements, I think, is that you have to listen carefully. You have to hear what they're saying. You have to know that you have to build trust. They have to build trust. And it takes years, because you have heard the stories that both Anita and Alice articulated. Our women have those same stories. It took years before they opened up to us about what their lives really were, how women were treated, that it's a patriarchal society. And you have to hear that and wait for them to share that with you. The understanding their needs and wants, it's not what our needs and wants are, it's what theirs are. It's how we can help them become strong together, be one voice together, to openly share and talk, and to be, I mean, one of the big things is they would never tell us what was wrong. And then we'd get there and there'd be all these problems, and then we'd have to have this opportunity to excel, is what I call it. And then we could work things out together. So what I wanted to share with you, I just am seeing that we're running short on time. So thank you, I'll keep going.
Yeah, keep going, you're right. Too inspirational, I can't stop you.
The Connecticut chapter And KHCI, I can't overemphasize, we have only worked with enterprises. We have never done an independent distribution. We have never taught. We have trained people to teach while we were there. And Leston, yes, Leston excels. He is wonderful. We are blessed to have Leston. And we taught men and women from each village how to do the 2 menstrual health programs, because we felt it so important that we always teach men, women, boys, and girls. And that has been a really great model. Everything has always gone to Chumvi Days for Girls. And what I want to talk about is that sometimes you have to be very concerned about overwhelming an enterprise and the danger of becoming a toxic charity. And Ralph and I have spent a great deal of time in all of our projects knowing this and saying, oh, we just can't do this. We have to hear that. Well, we became the toxic charity. And what happened was the Connecticut chapter got so big, we were shipping too much stuff. And in Chumvi, how did we expect these women who lived in manadas, had small lives, who practically owned nothing, to organize, inventory, and sort out all of these kits, all of these products? And so what happened in a short version of this is we said, this is too much stuff you have. Let us take half of it out of here and send it to the other enterprises. How did I meet the other enterprises and get to know them? It was through Christine. And as we say here, Christine is the gateway to Days for Girls Kenya. She's in Nairobi. She's very accessible. There she is, and she just guides you along. And from that, I met other enterprise leaders. From our connections in the US, we met other enterprise leaders. And by the time we knew it, we knew 8 enterprises, and we're in communication, and people were saying, we need this, can you do this, can you help us this? And we had the ability to do that. And in doing that, we then put together a one-day workshop at Christine's house. And the day before, we visited 4 enterprises. So that gave us an idea of what enterprises needed and what they looked like. And Kathy Erickson knows well what I'm talking about when you look at 4 different enterprises in Nairobi, and they're all completely different. So on this one-day workshop, we invited them all to come, and we were going to go for gold. That was the whole thing. At home, Jean Shalaba, who's also on this call, she was going for gold for our team here because we had to be gold if they were going to be gold. So when we did this, they all brought kits, they sat around the table, and the next thing we know, it was like a miracle. Nobody was worried about who was criticizing who or making a suggestion. They were just around this table, measuring, we were taking photos. They would say, oh, and this person would help this person. The next thing we know, they go into the sewing room and they would recorrect what they were doing. And then we began, we took all of that, and then we went and some lumps and bumps. We got 6 of our groups gold, and a couple are very, very close to becoming gold. But that was magic, because one of the things we were saying to them was that Kenya enterprises have to become one voice. You are strong if you are together. If you're all working in isolation and you don't help each other, you will not be strong. If you want to spread throughout Kenya, you need to be one voice. And that is exactly what happened on this day. And in the afternoon, they each brought items that they could share. This is how we are sustainable. So we also do this. And people shared ideas. They talked about what they did. We did some troubleshooting about, what were some of the struggles within the enterprises. It was the most phenomenal day that we had. Just invited us to be part of the Kenya support team. I cannot say enough about working with Anita and Christine and Alice and Kayenga. We worked hours together. Celeste led the way, and that is really helped a tremendous amount in bringing the enterprises together and all the other things that you have heard talked about. And lastly, what I would just say is that supporting an enterprise doesn't always mean bringing kits. We learned quickly that we sent them components because They had to figure out how to inventory them, what were they selling, and that was easy. But what did they need? Just like they said, they needed snaps. They needed rotary cutter blades, those mats that you put on an AccuQuilt Go. Many little things. Sometimes they just needed an encouragement. And that is really how it grows. It has been our absolute honor to be a part of Days for Girls. It has changed our lives. It has changed our nonprofits. And a shout out to our Connecticut team. And the one thing I want to say is that because we were the first group in Connecticut, and we got some publicity in the newspaper, people started to find us, and we ended up with 3 groups. So it's not just we're the Orange Connecticut chapters, we have 3 groups within our state, and we all come together and talk and work things out together. So we too have grown and we have learned. I cannot say enough. You reduced me to tears, and believe me, they know I'm not a cryy kind of person. But this has been an absolutely incredible experience for us. Thank you,
Marianne. Thank you. You're gonna make me cry. Thank you. Thank you for sharing all of that, and that just incredible rich history. Amazing to see. Okay, our last speaker today is Jennifer from the Meridian, Idaho chapter. I'll throw it over to you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Layla. So we are a bigger chapter who produces a lot of kits. And when we first heard about enterprises, we loved the idea, but it's been a little bit of a journey trying to figure out how can we make that work with what we've got going on in our chapter, because sometimes we're so busy with the mass amount of volunteers and the mass amount of volume of things that we're creating, knowing how do we also manage this enterprise thing, and how do we make that fit in with what we're already doing. So we've had a few bumps in the road and a few different things. You know what, we started out with sending some supplies to a brand new enterprise once or twice, and our journey's kind of been evolving, and we wanted to do some fundraising. We wanted to support enterprises. And so, at first we did some 50-50s where we had some people going to some of these places. We knew there were enterprises, and we're like, hey, how about if we send you with half the kits, but you purchase half the kits there? And that worked out really well. And then with the red zones, we're like, okay, we can't do that anymore. And so just being aware of what Days for Girls policy is and how's the best way to do that has been a challenge. But I will say that one thing we've noticed is there's been some changes with the changes in policy. Days for Girls has also done big changes in the organization. So there's been a lot of changes in the distribution manager even over the last couple of years. And the way that now, Gina Nash is the new distribution manager, and she has a much bigger role with enterprise. She actually has been a mentor. She's worked closely with an enterprise, and so she understands a lot more about the enterprises. And so that's part of her job as well, as managing orders from enterprises and understanding how that works. And so she's a great resource. And I've noticed there's a lot of questions in the chat about how can I do this, or what should I do, or is there an enterprise? She's a great one to reach out to. So if you have a question and you're trying to figure something out, I would encourage you to send an email to distribution@daysforgirls.org. She is a great resource. She knows and understands enterprises, and she knows and understands distributions. And I feel bad for her because I'm sure she is super, super busy, but she does a great job of responding and helping. And so our work with an enterprise in Kenya actually started a year ago when one of our previous directors, Kayla Leah Rich, went with Celeste on a trip over, and they hit a couple of different countries, but I know Kenya was one of them because they helped launch the Red Line campaign that Anita was talking about earlier. And when she was there, she was able to meet all of these. I'm sure she's probably met every person we've heard from today. And she came back and just had wonderful, wonderful things to say about everything that's going on in Kenya and other areas of the world, other enterprises in other countries. It's just amazing, the enterprise program and what the vision that Days for Girls has with these enterprises. And while she was there meeting with some of the enterprise leaders, she met a lady who was they were a brand new enterprise, and they were just visiting. And she said, what do you need? How are you doing with this, brand new enterprise? And she expressed that her biggest challenge was that she needed a mentor. And so Kayla said, oh, I've got a chapter for you. We'll totally mentor you. I'm still trying to figure out what that means exactly, but we've been in contact with this new enterprise and helped encourage them to get gold certified, which they are now. And when we reached out to them back in September and say, hey, what are your biggest challenges? they expressed to us that their challenge was they had spent all of the funding they had to purchase materials. I think it was for shields. So they had everything they could make shields, but they didn't have any funding left to purchase materials to make liners. And that was their biggest challenge, was how do you make a kit? I mean, you can make shields, but if you can't make the liners, then it's really hard to even sell a pod, right? So we said, okay, well, we wanted to help them with that. And so we actually reached out. I sent an email to Gina at distribution, and I said, okay, how's the best way to do this? And she encouraged us. And also we had the thought, I think, that it would probably, instead of just sending the money to them, what they, they told us how much they thought they would need. Instead of just sending them the money, it would probably be more beneficial for them if we purchased kits from them and gave them the money right up front, sent the money right now for the purchased kits that they hadn't sewn yet, with the understanding that they would then distribute those kits. And with working with Gina, we decided that instead of doing Supreme kits, what might benefit the enterprise more is to have them do Smart Starter kits. Because if we sponsor partial kits or Smart Starter kits that gets a girl's going, it's the minimum that she's going to need, once she's used it and has figured out how awesome this is and that she wants more items, then it might generate future sales for that enterprise in the future. So that was a really good tip that I would have never come up with on my own. So, but I think that is a great thing for us to know and a thing for us to realize as a chapter supporting enterprises in these other countries. And then she just reached out to us a few months ago and said that they had an order for Smart Starter kits in a school, and the order they had would cover all of the grade 8 girls and 27 out of 90 of the grade 7 girls. So they were just going to have to pick which 27 are the neediest girls in that grade 7. And she said, is there any way that you can help us to cover the rest of that grade 7? And honestly, with COVID, things have changed so much. Our fundraising, the way that we used to bring money in, everything's totally different. And honestly, my first response was, and I didn't say this to her, but in my head, I'm thinking, there's no way we could do that. There's no way that's like 97 Smart Starter, 70 Smart Starter kits. I'm like, well, we'll just throw it out there. And it was amazing to me that I put it in our newsletter. I let people, our support group know this is what we're trying to do. And it is amazing what can happen when you throw it out there and decide, well, we'll push forward and see. Like, what's the worst that can happen? We might not get to all of them, but we'll just see. So I would encourage chapters to think about enterprises and ways that we can help and support. One thing we've tried to do is we wanted to have 2 main fundraisers a year, centered them kind of around the Menstrual Hygiene Day in May and the International Day of the Girl in October, which is also right by Days for Girls' birthday. And I was like, well, maybe one of them can fund our chapter expenses and one of them can fund things like enterprises and these global projects that Days for Girls does. But we just last month decided with COVID fundraisers, like things got messed up and how does that even work? And so what we've decided moving forward is that we do want supporting enterprises and these global projects to be part of our chapter's goals consistently. And so what we're going to do is every month, the funds that we bring in, we want to have 80% of those be reserved for running our own chapter and our supplies and things, but 20% we want to earmark and put towards these kind of global projects and enterprise support. And that might change from month to month, but that's okay. We know every month we're doing something to help support, and we might not send them the money every month, but we know that we have earmarked some of our funds to go towards that and helping in that area. So just some ideas for you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. That's amazing to hear. Thank you. Okay, well, I know that we're way past our time, and just before we wrap up, as a final ending, I did want to just ask Christine and Leston if they had anything they wanted to share, or just to say hello to everyone, because I know that you've come and joined the call, and we'd love to hear from you.
Wow. So this is Leston Kimiri. So this is Leston, the Chumvi Enterprise Leader, and also the official KCI coordinator in Chumvi. So I'm happy to be part of Days for Girls. I joined Days for Girls in 2019. And here we are. We are doing well and we are happy. So maybe what I can say as we wrap up because of time is that to our volunteers and our supporters is that menstruation is not all about the products. It's not all about the affordability. It's not all about the safety of the product, but there is also the education part, which is very critical in eradicating the menstrual shame. So we cannot just offer products without educating our people, because in Africa, we have a lot of taboos and culture associated with menstruation. So we have also, that is why we also want to partner with you, because we want to do the education to our people as we distribute the product, so that we can stop the menstrual shame as we go on together. So that's what I can say. But thank you very much for this for girls. Chumbi Days for Girls. We cannot complain, because we have our mentors here, and they have supported us fully. Where we are as Chumbi, we can all give it to KHCI. That is the Kenya initiative led by Daktari, Ralph Stroop and Mary Ann Stroop. So we are very grateful, and we are happy to be part of this for Girls Kenya and this for Girls International. Thank you.
Thank you, Leston. Thank you. And thank you for being such an amazing male advocate of menstrual health in your country.
Yeah, thank you.
Christine, anything you'd like to share or say to everyone?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited. My name is Christine. I entered Days for Girls in 2015. That is when I joined Days for Girls, and it has really an amazing journey. I met Kathy during that time, and Kathy is the one who made the video that we are using mostly on Days for Girls website. So it is Kathy who did it, and at Erickson, and it was really amazing. Kathy has connected me to like 2 enterprises that I have mentored. They have gone to Uganda, and now they are doing an amazing job. And I met Mary Ann. Mary Ann has just been like a mentor to me. I wish she could just adopt me and I become part of Chumbi, because she's just like my mentor. She brings in everything. Like, I don't know if I didn't have Mary Ann, I don't know what I would be, because she has done amazing. My first machine was bought by Mary Ann. And most of the things I get from Kathy Erickson and Mary Ann. So they have been great asset for me. And mentors and chapters and team, they have really been part of this journey. The reason why most of the people talk about Christine, it is because of the chapters, the team. They have been able to support us in so many ways, like bringing in the labels, bringing in the aprons, bringing in, I don't even know what to say. But Mariana, I would also want to thank you, even because of, we have gold because of you. It was because of pushing us so hard to the wall that now we call ourselves gold certificate. I don't know if it was not for you, how we could have managed it. You have really done and you are a great mentor for Days for Girls Kenya. You have really done an amazing job in the support team, in the everything. I don't know what to say. These enterprises, each of us, we have an AccuCut because Marianne has done this. Everything we have always needed, she's always pushing us. She's like a mother to us. All the teams and chapters have just been amazing. We are so grateful because of where you have taken us. But now, for the women who are working in the enterprises, they need to earn money by sewing the kits. They really need that money. If we can have chapters and teams who can adapt some of these enterprises that don't have mentors, it will really be a great something great. Like if every enterprise can get a mentor. You see, I'm always
thank you, Christine. Thank you.
I will not be able to finish this, but thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing, both of you. It's wonderful to have you here. Thank you. Okay, well, that brings us to the end of the Days for Girls in Kenya
Layla, just before you end, 1 minute.
Oh, sure.
As the Kenyan team, would like to request that anyone who can support the Mount Elgon enterprise can kindly join in. Mount Elgon is a region that has been having conflicts throughout the year. And if this is a region that we can transform, bring peace through menstrual health, then kindly join us in supporting the 2 enterprises.
Thank you, Bridget. What we can do is we'll get you in touch with Gina, so that if anybody reaches out at distribution are interested in getting connected with or supporting an enterprise in Kenya, she'll know that those enterprises are in need of some assistance or orders and things, and we can go from there. Perfect. Thank you, Bridget. Wonderful. Okay, that brings us to the end of our Days for Girls in Kenya webinar. Thank you so much to everybody who's joined us today, to our panelists over in Kenya and our chapter and team leaders and mentors. It's just been absolutely wonderful to hear your stories and just all of your amazing insights. So thank you, thank you, thank you, and have a wonderful afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you are in the world. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.